بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Inshallah, we'll start from where we had left last week. Just before I start, can I check? And I think I can see that everything's okay here. I'm sure that in terms of audibility, you can hear me fine. If there are any issues, please let me know. Alhamdulillah. Thank you. Jazakumullahu khairan. Okay, we'll start, inshallah. I'll present the Quranic text here. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم كتب عليكم إذا حضر أحدكم الموت إن ترك خيرا الوصية للوالدين والأقربين بالمعروف حقا على المتقين صدق الله العظيم. This is an ayat number 180, something that we had, the ayat we covered last week briefly in order to reconnect the thread. I'll go through this again. Kutiba alaykum, it has been written upon you, it has been prescribed for you, this has been declared upon you as a duty, that when إِذَا حَضَرَ أَحَدَكُمْ الْمَوْتُ, when the death draws closer to one of you, that, so what has been prescribed at the time when the death draws closer and when the death approaches one of you and you are in that illness where you feel that now you are unlikely to recover and you're heading towards the destiny, towards death, then at that time there is something which is compulsory upon you, and that is al-wasiyya. Writing a will is compulsory for in favor of the parents and the relatives in a just and appropriate manner, in a fair manner. So such wasiyyat is compulsory when in taraka khayran, if this individual who's having that experience, he's to leave behind khayran, some wealth, some good. So this wasiyah is haqqan ala al-muttaqeen, a duty upon the God-fearing. So this is the first element of the ayah, the first element of the hukm here, that if someone was leaving behind wealth, usually those assets are then, his estate is taken over by his children, and the family at the time, the wives and the children, they usually take it over. So at that time, if he's leaving behind wealth, then it is his duty to ensure that he writes a will wherein he allocates portion, some of his wealth to the parents and to the other relatives, siblings, etc. This is a hukam that's mentioned in this ayah. But it is important to bear in mind that this is no longer the case. Just like you are you're aware that there has been nasakh in the hukm, in the ahkam, in the verses of the Qur'an al-Kareem, because slowly and gradually the law, Islam was ordained, it was enjoined, it was introduced. So there were elements at the start which were compulsory, but later clear instructions were given in regards to whatever ambiguity they were meant to address. So the older ones no longer apply, and one of them is this ayah. Since the detailed hukm of mirath and inheritance, since that was made part of the Quran Kareem, and those verses were revealed subsequently later on in Surah An-Nisa, after the revelation of those verses, يُوصِيكُمُ اللَّهُ فِي أَوْلَادِكُمْ, I think it's verse number 11 from Surah An-Nisa, somewhere there, where the law of mirath is discussed in detail. Who should receive what? The parents should receive 1/3 or 1/6, and the siblings don't get anything if the deceased had any male offspring, and they do if he didn't. And how much should the wife get, and how much should the husband receive, in case the other half passing away? Those details are mentioned in Surah An-Nisa, because there this was discussed in detail and a certain structure was introduced. Now this wasiyah is no longer necessary. In fact, if someone tried to leave a wasiyah where where he if someone prepared a wasiyah which alters the shares allocated by the Quran Kareem, then such wasiyah would be null and void unless after the approval of the remaining heirs and the other relatives. So if someone left behind two sons and a daughter, and then the daughter gets half of what the brothers receive, but say if he wants her to receive more, so he then decides that she should get more than half of her brothers. Then is if the brothers also allow, if his sons also approve that will of his, and they no object to it, they do not object to it, and they voluntarily withdraw from what they were entitled to, then that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That is okay. But it wouldn't be enforceable if the sons objected to it. So the word of Allah, the law, as prescribed in the Quran Kareem, it takes precedence over the desires and the wish of the deceased. So that al-wasiyah was initially, in early years, it was made compulsory, it was made obligatory because the detailed instructions weren't there. However, this is the first part. The second part here is that this is not compulsory anymore. However, if someone owes something to someone, if someone is in debt and he has to pay off a debt, and there aren't even nobody else is aware of it, then it is his duty, it's his responsibility to to dictate that to someone and leave behind a will where he clearly acknowledges the debts on his burden on his shoulders, and and he makes it clear to everyone that he's responsible for paying off those dues, so they can be paid subsequently. So in that case where someone owes something to someone, or someone is keeping a trust of someone, so say he has a precious some precious jewelry, a watch or something, which does not belong to him, and it's the property of someone else which he's keeping as a trust, then it is important that this is documented, so his heirs and the people do not get confused in regards to it. So in similar situations, the Prophet ﷺ said that someone who has debt, then he should. I think there's a hadith that was in somewhere that the Prophet ﷺ said that if someone has a debt of, then it's not permissible for him to spend 3 nights without having his will documented and written. So it is appropriate that when you take some when you have some debts, you get it documented. Usually, if it's a debt from an institute like a bank or something, people usually have that documented anyway, and the banks have it documented as well. Even though any borrowing which is where interest is involved, such borrowing is haram in itself, and I'm not condoning that. I'm not saying that is permissible. May Allah Ta'ala forgive me and may give me tawfiq to perform my task properly. So I'm not saying that it would be permissible, but what I'm saying is that any debt that's there, one has to get it documented, and usually people do make an effort and they have it documented with the witnesses. But and if there is a situation where this is not the case, then make sure as a student that we first and foremost we have it written, and we inform our children, our other successors, to be mindful in regards to it, because that continues to apply. That duty remains as binding. So that's the first part done. A wasiyat should be written and should be prepared bil ma'ruf, in a just manner. Second part, فَمَنْ بَدَّلَهُ بَعْدَ مَا سَمِعَهُ, and if anyone alters it, بَعْدَ مَا سَمِعَهُ, after hearing it, having heard it, someone changes that wasiyat. Say if it was not documented and the passing person said, I have this, and he gives some instructions. So if the people who heard it, they should convey it to the others, and it is important that they be witness to it and they do not change it. If someone changes it after hearing it, فإنما إثمه على الذين يبدلونه. Then its sin is only upon those who alter it and who change it. Surely Allah is all hearing, all knowing. The person who passed away, the deceased, whatever he earned, that belongs to him. If it belongs to him, then he can do with it what he likes within limits. So if he then leaves behind, he leaves a will wherein he says that I have this I want this to be done to my property, and if it's in within parameters, then he's perfectly entitled to it. And if others didn't do it as he instructed, they'll be guilty of sin. So someone left a property, so someone left, say, in the state of, say, like £100,000. Definitely he has entitlement to do with it, do up to the one third of it, whatever he sees fit and whatever is appropriate. And if he left some instructions in regards to it, and people then neglected that, say the deceased person said that one third of my wealth, £33,000, should be given to the local masjid, but then they tried to keep that information blurred and they didn't let anyone find out, and they just took over whatever he'd left behind, then people who are guilty of changing those that instructions or hiding or whatever, then they are sinful and they are guilty, and Allah is aware of everything and Allah knows everything. He hears everything. Allah hears what he said and Allah is aware what they do to it. But if he then did not leave anything behind and he just left a will, I want my daughter to be married to X, or I want my son to marry X. Now this is his desire. It's up to the children, it's up to the successors, it's up to the heirs whether they want to fulfill or not. Just because he had expressed a desire, it does not become something, a duty upon people to withdraw from their rights. So those such kind that kind of wasiyat where he is which was out of his authority, then that is not necessary, that is not binding. It's up to the heirs, up to the warith, whether they want to kind of uphold his desire or not. They're perfectly, they have a choice. They are not responsible, and it's not, it's duty bound to ensure that it happens as the deceased had decided. فمن خاف من موص جنفا أو إثما فأصلح بينهم فلا إثم عليه. Now this happened. You can't change the will. That has just been explained. And the type of wills that you can change, I've tried to also explain that. If there's any questions, please feel free to answer, to question. فَمَنْ خَافَ مِنْ مُوصٍ. There's the third aspect here. The third aspect is that when you witness a person dictating a will, at that time, if or someone consults you about preparing a will, and then he expressed a desire to include such terms in his will which are janafan or ithman, which are either a betrayal, a kind of error, or ithman, or is some kind of sin, then it is important, it's appropriate that the witness or the person who's being consulted, he tries to فَأَصْلَحَ بَيْنَهُمْ, he puts a word of advice into his ears and tries to stop him from taking that erroneous course, that course of error. So if he does that, then this is appropriate. فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ. There is no sin on him, that he's trying to encourage him to do, to be fair and to do right. Someone comes and says that I intend to make sure that my children don't get anything from my estate. So I'm trying to do something that they don't get a penny. They've troubled me a lot. Now, at the time, yani, we do acknowledge, we do appreciate that the old man is very upset and very angry with his children, but what he intends to do is not permissible. You can't do that to your children, even though what they may have done. The law says that after he passes away, he can do away with only up to one third of his property, not with all of it. So if he tries to pull a trick of some sort, where he, before passing away, prepares a false statement and says, I owed £100,000 or I owed £500,000 to X bank or X charity, and then he just leaves that behind. So the charity then lays claim to it, or someone else makes claim of it and takes away everything. then that pulling that kind of playing games would not benefit him in the hereafter. So if upon becoming aware of such intentions of error or sin, which the musi, the person preparing the wasiyat, which he intends to do, then it is appropriate that you try and create reconciliation between them, him and the aggrieved parties. If he's upset with the children, then you can go and encourage the children to come and apologize, or just put a word of advice into his ears and encourage him not to take the course of sin. فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ, there shall be no harm upon him. Surely Allah is Ghafurun, all forgiving, Ar-Rahimun, Rahimun, merciful. So this is the third instruction here, that if you fear that you happen to witness, and you invited to prepare a witness, you're uh, part of a process where wasiyat is being prepared, and you notice that the musi, the person dictating wasiyat, he has taken the wrong course, and try and do islah, and for this you will be rewarded. And such effort to do islah, there is no sin in it. However, if someone did the opposite at such crucial moment, he tried to deviate him, and at that time someone said to him to leave some of his assets for gunah or something evil, some ithm activity, then that is definitely wrong. Or kind of stirred hostility in his mind and reminded him of how his wife had behaved to him all his life, and made him so upset that he prepared a will in such a manner where the wife does not get anything, then that would be wrong. And the person who stirred such hatred and controversy and ill feelings into the heart of the deceased, then he will definitely be guilty, and that kind of behavior is forbidden and haram. So this surah, as I mentioned last week, from لَيْسَ الْبِرَّ أَن تُوَلُّوا وُجُوهَكُمْ onwards, talks about the ahkam for this ummah. The first half was more to do with the non-Muslims. It was more focused at the meanings of iman. But the second half, from Ya Laysa al-birra wujuhakum onwards, it talks it's more focused on ethics and akhlaq and the duties upon Muslims, and it's more focused on Islam. Islam means the do's and do nots, the practical things. Iman means the tenets of faith, and that is which to do with the mental conviction and with the mindset. So the second half is more to do with the practical aspects. In the practical aspects, we first learned لَيْسَ الْبِرَّ أَن تُوَلُّوا وُجُوهَكُمْ. Rituals are not everything. Turning face to the east or to the west or to one qibla or the other, that's not where the loyalty is. The loyalty is in your ethics, the loyalty is in your akhlaq, the loyalty is in your behavior. And there should be kindness, one should be charitable, etc., etc. And then we moved on to the second hukum, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْقِصَاصُ فِي الْقَتْلَى. We talked about qisas, which is the retribution in case of a murder, someone being murdered, there has to be fair retribution, and the guilty must pay. The third hukum that we learned was about al-wasiyah, which we just finished, and the fifth one is about as-siyam. This is the ayat that we have in front of us. O you who believed, kutiba alaykum as-siyam, fasting has been prescribed to you, upon you, kama kutiba alal ladina qablikum, as it had been prescribed for those that came before you, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, perhaps so you may become God-fearing and you may acquire taqwa. As-siyamu, O people, as-siyam has been ordained for you. This has been made compulsory for you. As-siyam is the plural of sawm, or as-siyam can be the infinite noun, the masdar, which means observing fast or fasting. So fasting is prescribed for the ummah of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's one of the key duties of Islam, one of the 5 pillars. So without fasting, if someone neglects fast altogether or says, I do not believe in fasting to be part of Islam, then such a person, because he rejected one of the commandments of Allah Azza wa Jal, one of the elements of deen, he rejected its validity altogether, let alone observing it, then he would be pushed out of the fold of Islam. كما كتب عليكم الصيام. So as-siyam is ordained for this ummah. It is important, at least for every Muslim, to declare verbally that I believe that observing fast is part of our deen, and this is part of Islam, and Allah Ta'ala wants this from His people. Then he should also do it in order to maintain his Islam. But if he didn't, then he'd only be a fasiq, he'd only be a sinful person. But if someone rejected it altogether, just like unfortunately, sometimes from time to time, we hear such statements where we wonder what's happening to the iman and the Islam of this individual. So make sure that you do not say anything bad about as-siyam, because as-siyam is part of deen. So as-siyam is being made obligatory for you. Sawm means al-imsak, which means to withdraw from, and to back off, and to restrain. That is what as-siyam means. So one restrains himself, one holds back, one keeps himself away from food and from drink and from sleeping with women during the daytime hours. That is how siyam is understood in Islam. In كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم, as it had been ordained and prescribed upon those who came before you. Those who came before us, who were they? They were the Christians, and prior to them were the Jewish, and the other nations prior to the time of Judaism. Sayyidina Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, other nations that were before him, Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, Sayyidina Ayub alayhi salatu wasalam, and earlier on, the time of Sayyidina Ishaq, Yaqub, Ismail alayhi salam, and Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, and all that came before them. They all had a siyam as a type of as an act of worship to draw closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. Almost all of them had that. كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم, as it had been, as it was made compulsory upon those that were before you, لعلكم تتقون. So the idea, the purpose of fast is that you acquire taqwa, and you become strong, and you become righteous, and you develop this ability within you to say no to the evil. أيام معدودات. Now, fasting, unlike certain other acts of obedience, fasting is more challenging. Charity is easy. Simply, you have money, you calculate it, you give it away to the poor. So, not really as much physical strain as you would find in other acts of ibadah. In charity, simply you take money out of your pocket, but that in itself is difficult. However, that in comparison to the other two, that is difficult. That is easy. But then, other than charity, salah is again not very difficult. But sawm, because it kind of pushes you into a situation where you do not eat and you do not drink, and rafath in nisa also, you withhold from it, you're enjoying the company of your other half. Then because of that, because it is difficult, Allah Azza wa Jal mentions it in a manner which makes it appear to be easy. The first thing is ayyam ma'dudat, and indeed the law in its totality has made fasting very easy. This is why you hear at the end of the month of Ramadan, and our non-Muslim counterparts, our non-Muslim colleagues, they find it humorous, and they find it amazing. They say that Muslims, having observed fast for the whole month, when they went throughout the day without eating or drinking, at the end of the month, rather than losing weight, they gain more weight. They put even more weight on. So before Ramadan, one weighed 80 kg, and after Ramadan, he now weighs, mashallah, 95 kg. So this is because Allah Ta'ala has made the law such that it's very easy to fast. It does not really make it very hard, very difficult. So that's why Allah Ta'ala says, firstly, ayyam ma'dudat, a limited number of days. Ma'dudat, days that are counted. So it's not endless fasting that Allah Ta'ala demands from you. It's just a few days, fasting of a few days that Allah Ta'ala has made compulsory. So observe fast of those days. فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا. And the second is that in order to make it easy for you, if there is, so whoever is from amongst you, maridan, sick. So if there's a sick person amongst you, أو على سفر, or someone's on a journey, فعدة من أيام أخر, then he should count. It's prescribed for him to count those days. فعدة, then a prescribed number, من أيام أخر, from the other days. Adda ya'uddu means to count. So idda is just like ma'duda. Ma'duda is counted, just a few number. So something that is numbered, that is not, they're not too many, they're not endless, that's not endless time. So over here, faidatu min ayyamin ukhar means that if someone's sick or traveling and is not able to fast, then he should count the days from the other days. So whatever number of days that he happened to miss during the month of Ramadan, he should count those days and observe the fast of those days later on out with the month of Ramadan. It could have been simply, it would have been simpler if it said, فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعَلَيْهِ الْقَضَاءُ. So if there is a marid, there's a sick person or someone traveling, then he should do qada and he should observe those fasts later. That could have been said. But instead of that, Allah Ta'ala said, فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. Then for him, he's such a person who is sick or traveling during the month of Ramadan, then he has to, then it's prescribed for him فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. Then equal number of days are to be made up from the other days. عِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. So what this, the way it's been phrased, is that what this says is that, say if that it is important that he does fast of the missed days from the days that he is given. So if someone does not get a period of recovery after the month of Ramadan, the sickness and the illness lasted with him until he breathed last few days or few months, few weeks after Ramadan. So even though he was able to, he lived after the month of Ramadan, but that other, that excuse, that kind of ailment stayed with him, rendered him unable to fast. So if he was not able to fast even after the month of Ramadan, and he continued with that sickness and that disease, then there's no qada on him, because he did not get any ayyamin ukhar, he did not get days out with and away with and without any illness, without any sickness. Since he did not get any sickness-free days, there is no qada on him. But if he does get sickness-free days, even if whatever number of days he'd received, he'll have to do qada of it later, subsequently. فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. And then secondly, he just has to count. Qada does not mean that he fasts the days one after the other, consecutively, one after the other, without taking a break in between. That's not necessary. One can fast with a break in between. So say if he fasted for 2 days, then he takes a break of 2 days, then he fasts for another 2 days, then he fasts one more day. So that is perfectly fine. It's not that he has to fast for the missed days consecutively, one after the other. Here one can take a break in between. وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةٌ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ. And upon those who manage it with struggle. طَاقَ يُطِيقُ means those who can barely do it. Upon such individuals who can do it, who have the taqat, فِدْيَةٌ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ. They have to pay a ransom, a fidya, the food of feeding of one poor person. فَمَنْ تَطَوَّعَ خَيْرًا فَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَهُ. Whoever volunteers to do an act of goodness, then this shall be better for him. And that you observe fast is better for you, in kuntum ta'lamun, if you have knowledge and if you understand. So this is what's in this ayah. The first part is clear. أيام معدودات فمن كان منكم مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر. This is clear, easy to understand. There's nothing very, very difficult in it. Anyone who's sick, happens to be sick during the month of Ramadan, or happens to be a traveler during the month of Ramadan, then he doesn't have to fast at that time. He can later catch up with whatever he missed subsequently after the month of Ramadan, if he gets a suffer-free and maras-free days. If he doesn't, then he doesn't have to. That is one thing that is mentioned here. The other thing that is mentioned here is what that needs to be understood is, what does it mean by marid and what does it mean by safar? Marid is a sick person, and in terms of Sharia here, that's such sickness which renders one unable to observe fast. That kind of marad is the one where this hukm is applicable. Otherwise, simple a marad which does not obstruct one from observing fast, one should not use it as an excuse to miss and give away his fast. Someone suffers from some kind of mental health issues, even though that in itself is a serious subject that shouldn't be taken lightly. However, certain types of mental health issues are such that you can cope with it even if you're fasting, because they're not related to fasting. That's something very different. So someone who suffers from OCD, or someone who suffers from some kind of other mental issues at a lighter level, not at extreme level, on a lighter side, he should not use that as an excuse to abandon fast. So maraz that is viewed as a maraz that leads to that gives you that ease is that maraz where observing fast is extremely painful. Or one fears that if I can started observing fast during the day, then it may cause me a lot of pain, or which is difficult to bear, or it may even increase the maraz in me. So if that happens, some people they have to constantly drink throughout the day. If they do not drink, then they're likely to become unwell again. So that is a situation where if one observed fast and he did not drink and he did not have enough fluid through his system during the day, then his maraz is likely to increase and likely to get worse. So for such person to miss his fast is okay. So, but not the other that has mentioned in terms of the some types of mental health situations. أو على سفر, or someone's traveling. Now this journey, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned about when it comes to the khuffain, the masah on over leather socks. He talked about khuffain that masah on leather socks is permissible for someone who is muqim. He can do it for 1 day and 1 night, and someone who's a musafir, he can do it 3 days and 3 nights. So 3 days and 3 nights, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, is that which makes one a person musafir. This is why the subsequent scholars of fiqh and scholars of hadith, they agreed that safarin does not mean any journey. So if you step out of your house to local supermarket, which is about 5 miles away, then even though you're traveling to the supermarket, you're not understood and viewed as a musafir in terms of Sharia. You'd only be viewed as a musafir in terms of Sharia if you intended to travel up to it's a 3 days journey by walk that people used to have. People used to travel with the modes of travel they had were camels, horses, etc. Or if or that so that 3 days journey or that distance is about 48 miles according to Imam Shafi, and according to I think Imam Shafi also it's about 48 miles. So that kind of journey, if one undertakes, then he is allowed to. So if you're traveling a distance more than 48 miles, then it'd be permissible for you to delay your fast for another day. So that is Maridan Awana Safar. The second, however, the second part of the ayat is a bit difficult. It seems a bit difficult. Why is it difficult? I'll look at the translation again. And upon those who yutiqunahu. This is the difficult part. Yutiqunahu means literally taqa yutiqu means someone has the taqat. Now the taqat is an Urdu word as well. This is used in Urdu and it's used in Arabic. Taqa. So people have taqat, people have strength. So yutiqunahu means people who have strength to do it. They can do fityatun ta'amu miskin. So if you look at the ayat as it stands, it seems that the ayat is saying that you have a choice in terms of fasting, whether you want to fast or not. Because the ayat says, those who have the taqat, those who can do it, they still can give fidya of feeding one miskin person. So this is, because of this, some ulama are of the opinion that yutiqunahu has a special meaning here. Yutiqunahu, according to some ulama, means la yutiqunahu, those who cannot do it, who cannot do not possess the ability or strength to observe fast and go without drinking and eating for the rest of the day. So people, yutiqunahu means people who have taqat and who have strength, but they have the strength, but it's not normal for them. If they performed the fast, if they observe fast, then it'll render them into, they'll have to push themselves. So that is one meaning yutiqunahu, that people push. The other is la yutiqunahu, they cannot do it. But these kind of things are difficult to justify when it comes to teaching the Quran Kareem, studying the Quran Kareem. There's a third course here. The third course is that yutiqunahu means the third course is that yutiqunahu means that in early days, and the third interpretation, the third view here is that this ayat was overruled by an ayat that came subsequently, which is the following ayat number 185. So according to this interpretation, عَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ is translated as normal. But what this third view, third interpretation is that عَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ was ruled by ayat 185. And the way they explain is as follows. I think this hadith is reported by a number of scholars, Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayh, and by Imam Abu Dawud, Imam Nasai, and a number of other scholars as well. They've reported this from the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, that they said the hukm of Sawm came in stages. So there was a time, so I think it's mentioned about three stages. So one stage was when, so initially, just like you must have heard about alcohol, there was a time when alcohol was, it was said that there's more harm in it than benefit. So some people stopped drinking. Then the hukam came that you are, when it comes to salah times, do not drink before you engage in salah. So people started taking it at other times. And finally, the hukam came that stay away from alcohol altogether. So in stages, the hukam was introduced. Similarly, fasting, because it's a difficult job, it was introduced in stages. This is what, as I said, the hadith earlier. So the Sahaba say that it was introduced in stages. The first stage was that they were meant to fast only number of days. On the 10th of Muharram, and they were meant to fast for 3 days, ayyam Bees, every month. So every month they would fast for 3 days, and in the month of Muharram, they would fast for 3 days, and on the 10th of Muharram too. So this was initially the first hukam. There was no month of Ramadan. They didn't have to fast for 30 days in a row, 30 days consecutively. They would just do 3 days every month, and on the 10th of Muharram. So this was the first stage of Sawm. The second stage of Sawm is Ayah 184. The month of Ramadan was prescribed. However, they were given a choice. So it was said that it is compulsory for you to fast for a month. However, bear in mind that month is not an endless time. This is just a few days, days in that are numbered. But at the same time, it was said that even then, during those 30 days, you have a choice. You either fast for 30 days throughout the month, and if you're unwell or traveling, you count subsequently, you do a qada later on, or you do not fast and instead you opt for fidya. So this was the second stage of Sawm. So you give fidya of feeding one miskeen person. For each fast, you feed one miskeen, one poor person. So people so at the second stage, people had a choice. They didn't have to fast on the 10th of Muharram. They didn't have to fast for the 3 days every month. And even during the month of Ramadan, they did not have to fast. If they could fast if they wanted. If they didn't want to fast, they could just give fidya. And this was a leisure, this was pleasure, this was a freedom that they had. So someone who's perfectly fit and healthy but is not feeling like fasting, then he can get away with it by feeding one poor person. This was the second stage of fasting. But then the other ayat 185 came, where it was that choice was taken away. That choice was withdrawn, and it was stated in clear terms, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْ. Whoever happens to be present during that month, he must observe fast of it. So in that case, in that perspective, in that third, as I said, the third way of explaining the ayah, the third view here is that عَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ is an ayat which was made mansukh and overruled by the subsequent ayat. However, there's a mention of fidyatun ta'amu miskeen. One can give fidya of a miskeen person. This is still, the ta'am means, sorry, I come to the other side. Ta'am means feeding miskeen. So a poor person can be fed every day. And how much food should be given? It is said that about nisfu sa'in min bur, which is about 1.75 kg of wheat. So that is the food that should be given to every miskeen for each, to one miskeen for each fast. So for 30 days of fasting, one miskeen should be given 1.75 kg of wheat every day, or its value. Say if it costs £5, then one should give £5 a day to a miskeen every day. فَمَنْ تَطَوَّعَ خَيْرًا فَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَهُ. However, it is recommended that you volunteer to do good, then this is better for you. That you do not just resort to fidya, you try and observe the fast, because that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has recommended, and that's what He wants. وَأَن تَصُومُوا خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ, and that you observe fast is better for you in kuntum ta'lamun, if you know and if you have knowledge. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. Now, this is the second ayah. This ayah, even though it elaborates on the hukm of fasting, it continues with the theme of encouraging and motivating people to fast. The motivation here is the observing of fast has been recommended for the month of Ramadan, not any other ordinary month. A month during which you're asked to fast is that month which is unique and which is very special. Why is Shahr Ramadan is important? Because الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. Shahr Ramadan is that month in which the Qur'an was revealed. أنزل فيه, revealed in it. Al-Quran was revealed in this month. This is a special month. Just like إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر, that we revealed the Quran in Laylatul Qadr, in the night of power. So that night of power is in the month of Ramadan, and the Quran was revealed in that night. So the Quran was revealed in Ramadan. That night is, if we know that the Quran was revealed in 23 years, the Prophet ﷺ received his first wahy at the age of 40, and he continued to receive wahies one after the other until he passed away at the age of 23. 63. So 23 years of fasting, 23 years of revelation. That's the time which it took for the Quran to be revealed. So how is it? How can you say that it was month of Ramadan when the Quran was revealed? The month of Ramadan, the Quran was revealed in the month of Ramadan because the revelation of the Quran happened twice. One revelation was from al-Lawh al-Mahfuz, the preserved tablets, which are somewhere near the throne, near this shajara, this log tree, which is al-Lawh al-Mahfuz. There, from there, it was revealed to the first heaven, or the seventh heaven. But from al-Lawh al-Mahfuz, from these preserved tablets, where the Quran was kept for thousands of years prior to this ummah, even prior to the creation of the universe, where the Quran was preserved for thousands of years. From there, the Quran was revealed to the seventh heaven, or the first heaven, on the night of power in Laylatul Qadr. So that revelation has been mentioned in this ayah, that night was in the month of Ramadan when that revelation happened, and the Quran was revealed from al-Lawh al-Mahfuz to al-Quran, to the seventh heaven. So the Quran was revealed in it. هُدًى لِلنَّاسِ وَبَيِّنَاتٍ مِّنَ الْهُدَى وَالْفُرْقَانِ. The three purposes, three benefits of the revelation of Quran Kareem. First, هُدًى لِلنَّاسِ. It's a guidance for mankind. It leads people to the straight path. The second is وَبَيِّنَاتٍ مِّنَ الْهُدَى. Clear signs of hidayat. So it teaches the clear, very bayinat is part of those clear signs that Allah has, the clear ahkam, or the clear instructions that were revealed by the Almighty Allah Azza wa Jal to the previous nations, like Torah was revealed, like Zabur was revealed, like Injil was revealed. So is that chain, part of those clear ahkam which Allah has given to mankind. One of them is Al-Quran. So Quran is part of it. That's the second benefit of Quran. The third benefit is Al-Furqan, that the Quran is the criterion and the standard which distinguishes the truth from falsehood. So the Quran is a guidance. Quran is part of those clear instructions which were given to mankind, and the Quran is a standard between the right and wrong, between the truth and falsehood. This is the Quran. Such great bestowment from Allah was revealed during this month, and that month has been prescribed for you to observe fast. Now, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْ. Whoever happens to be present from amongst you during this month, he must fast. He must observe fast of it. So, if you happen to be present during this month of Ramadan, then it is compulsory for you to fast during this month. And any Muslim who happens to be present during the month, he has to fast for the month. So to be present means that you just witness it. You're there, you're alive. So it can be that one witnessed this presence. Can be that one witnessed the start of the month. He witnessed the crescent, so now he knows that the month has started. So he must observe fast of it. The other way of shahida is that he didn't witness the witnessed the witnessed the crescent by himself, but he was informed that others had witnessed. So he took that information was proven to him, by proven to the others. A decree was issued. A decree was issued. So by as a result of that, he would be viewed as someone who's witnessed it, who's present in the month. So from the start of the month until the end of the month, one will have to fast, and that is prescribed for him. If someone didn't witness at the start, it could be in a different way. Friend, it could be that he was not a Muslim. He was a kafir at the start of the month, and and he did not become Muslim until the month ended. There is no that shuhud is not the concept of shuhud is not found for him, is not proven for him. He was a non-Muslim at the start of the month, and he was a non-Muslim at the end of the month. So he does not fit into the category of minkum. Another scenario is that someone was nabaligh, amateur. Now he's amateur. As an amateur, he's Ramadan is not the ahkam do not apply to him. Let alone Ramadan, even other ahkam they do not apply to him. But what about that individual who came into Islam halfway through? Or what about that individual who became mature halfway through the Ramadan? Or what about that person who was, say, for instance, at the start of the month, he was unconscious? So, about such individuals who were, say, like an amateur person, nabaligh person, or a kafir, as they come into Islam, it is compulsory for them to fast the month as soon as this applies to them. As soon as the kafir becomes a Muslim, if he does that in the month of Ramadan, whatever number of days remain for him, he'll have to fast for it. And an amateur person becomes baligh in the month of Ramadan, he will have to fast for whatever number of days that he finds in the month. The third category, there's another group of people who are present in the month of Ramadan, but for one reason or the other, they are barred from fasting. For instance, a woman that's menstruating, or postnatal bleeding, nifas, and again, as I talked about earlier, someone who's unconscious. So they do fall into the category of minkum, but they're unable to fast because of an ailment, because of some other thing. So for them, they'll have to fast as soon as that udhr, or that barrier is lifted. So as soon as they become pak, as soon as the bleeding stops, or as soon as that person gains conscious, فَلْيَصُمْهُ, then they must fast, and they should fast later on as well. Because by nature, minkum was they met the criteria. The criteria was present. However, the criteria was present, they met the criteria, but they were unable to fast because of a barrier. So that barrier, when it's removed, they'll have to fast. In fact, for the other days that they missed, as mentioned in the subsequent part of the ayat, the next part of the verse, they'll have to do qada of it as well. But the kafir and the non-Muslim, they will not have to do qaza, they will not have to fast the missed days, because they were either not part of minkum or they were not part of shahida. The nabaligh person, the amateur, the one who hadn't reached the age of maturity, he does not fall into shahida part, and the non-Muslim does not fall into the minkum part. وَمَنْ كَانَ مَرِيضًا. Now this same hukam, this part, and whoever is unwell, sick, أو على سفر, or is on a journey, then he has to then prescribed number should be made up from the other days. من أيام أخر, from the other days. If you notice, وَمَنْ كَانَ مَرِيضًا is being repeated for the second time. It was part of in ayah 184. فَمَنْ كَانَ, where was it? فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. It was mentioned in ayah 184. Now it is being repeated again in ayah 185. Why? It's being repeated because we notice that there is a slight change here. In ayah 184, it was mentioned that people have a choice whether they want to fast or they do not want to fast. As I mentioned earlier, the Sahaba say that the hukam of fasting came in stages two. One was that in early days of Islam, they didn't have to fast for the whole month. They had to fast only on the 10th of Muharram and 3 days from every month. Then that hukam changed, and the month of Ramadan was introduced. But when the month of Ramadan was introduced in early years, it was said that you don't have to fast for the whole month. You have a choice: either fast or give fidya. Now this hukum continued until ayah 185 was revealed. When ayah 185 was revealed, that's when Sahaba had to fast, and they could not give fidya unless unless they were in a situation where they couldn't fast and they were not able to, and that's fine. That is such an individual who is unable to fast and has no hope of recovery either. Shaykhun Fanin, an aged person, an old man who's unlikely to recover, or person who is unwell and he's unlikely to get better, then for them they have to give fidya. ومن كان مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر. Then whoever was unwell, sick, أو على سفر, or a traveler on a journey, then he has to make up the prescribed number, the count from the other days. يريد الله بكم اليسر. Now there's a third change as well that happened in regards to the month of Ramadan. I mentioned the two. The third change that happened in regards to the month of Ramadan was that in early days of Islam, in early days when the month of Ramadan was introduced, when it was prescribed, the sehri, there was no concept of sehri time. There was no concept of sehri time. The fast would start as soon as people fell asleep in the evening. So when people after Isha, when they went to sleep, when they went to bed, and they woke up the following morning, when they woke up, that's when the fasting would start. So the sehri would end, if we take our concept, was that they had to have any meal, whatever they wanted for the following day. The only time they were allowed to eat was between Maghrib until they went to bed. And there was no bedtime prescribed at the time, but after Maghrib until bedtime, that was the only time when they were allowed to eat or drink. But as soon as people fell asleep, or Muslims fell asleep, their following subsequent fast would start. So they woke up an hour later, half an hour later, that's it. That's when the fasting would commence. But that ease was also that restriction was removed and replaced with the ease of having suhoor. And that suhoor, that ease, is mentioned again in ayah 187. We'll come to that shortly. يريد الله بكم اليسر. Allah Azza wa Jal intends to do yusr and ease with you, and He does not intend to put you in trouble and make it harder for you. وَلِتُكْمِلُ الْعِدَّةِ. And so you may complete the count. وَلِتُكَبِّرُ اللَّهِ. And so you may do takbir. You express the greatness of Allah. عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ. Because of that He guided you. وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. Also you may be grateful. Now the hukm of fasting, the rule of fasting, is this is ordained for you as it was ordained for people before you. And the benefit of fasting is that you get taqwa. You get this training of saying no to things that you find tempting, but you say no to them. So you get this training of saying no and holding back and not giving in to your craves and your desires. So that training makes you able to say no to haram. So that training Allah Ta'ala wants to give you, and this was part of the training of the previous nations as well. Now this has been ordained for you, but by doing so, yuridullah bikum yusr. Allah intends to do ease for you. When you do this, when you observe fast, Allah Ta'ala has made hukm such which is not difficult. This is why I said people find it amazing that after observing fast for a month, Muslims, majority of us, unfortunately, rather than losing weight, we put more weight on. So there's hardly any difficulty. Yuridullah bikum yusr. Allah Ta'ala intends to do ease. Allah Ta'ala wants to make it easy for you. So He did not ask you to fast for countless days. He did not ask you to go hungry for the whole month. He did not deny you from any comfort and much pleasures. But training is happening at the time in a manner which is not difficult. وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمْ الْعُسْرَ. Allah Ta'ala does not intend to put you into any difficulty or hardship. So it is for your benefit that Allah Ta'ala has prescribed this practice for you. وَلِتُكْمِلُ الْعِدَّةِ. And He's also enabled you to do qada. فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرَ. So He's enabled you, and He's made provision for your for those who are vulnerable amongst you and for those who are less capable. So he had made provision for them too. It's not that if Allah Ta'ala wanted, He could have made it such that people who are unwell or people who are traveling and are not able to fast. Okay, fine, they miss the opportunity. They don't they can't make up. But that is something which Allah Ta'ala did not do. Allah Ta'ala instead gave them option two. So they have a second go and a second chance to acquire all those benefits and all those barakat and all those blessings and all those divine bestowments which they missed as a result of some vulnerability, as a result of some incident that happened to them. They were unwell or they had to travel. وَلِتُكْمِلُوا الْعِدَّةِ, so you may complete the count, the number. So they will, having completed that count and having completed that number, they would be able to get the benefit and the virtue and the blessings of observing fast of the day. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned that for every day of fasting, this immense virtue. And people who miss it intentionally, the Prophet ﷺ said, such individual who missed the one single day of fasting without a valid excuse, then even if they were to fast for the rest of their lives, they'll never be able to meet up and catch up with what the barakat that they missed. So that is for people who miss fast without in an unjustified manner, without a valid excuse. But people who have valid excuses, Allah Ta'ala gives them second chance. They can complete the count by keeping qada. So this indeed is a great ni'mat of Allah Ta'ala. وَلِتُكَبِّرُ اللَّهِ, so you may do takbir of Allah Azza wa Jal, which happens on the day of Eid. You express the greatness of Allah Ta'ala over the fact that He guided you. وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ, also you may be grateful. So you do takbir of Allah Azza wa Jal. You do shukr of Allah Azza wa Jal. So you express His greatness. When you do that, what happens? وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. When my servants ask you, when my servants question you in regards to me, about me, then tell them فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ, surely I'm near, I'm close. أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ, I respond to the call of a caller. دعوة الداع, supplication, someone making a supplication. إِذَا دَعَانِي, when he calls me. فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي, so let them respond to me, and let them obey my commands. وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي, and let them believe in me. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ, so they may acquire rushd, and so they may be guided. Rushd is wisdom, rushd is intelligence, rushd is ability to see the truth. So that is all part of rushd. So in order to acquire that rushd, that wisdom, that intelligence and that guidance, let them have iman in me, ask them to believe in me, and ask them to do as I say. They will acquire all that. So وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ تُكَبِّرُ اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ, when you do Allah's takbir, when you do the shukr of Allah Azza wa Jal, then Allah Ta'ala hears it and Allah Ta'ala responds to it. And another important message here, a hint here, is that dua that you make during the hours of fasting, such du'as are accepted. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned that amongst the people that the du'as of whom are accepted, one is that person who's fasting. So a person who's fasting for the hours during the time when he's observing fast, throughout that time, whether it's 10 hours or 19 hours, throughout du'as that he makes to Allah Azza wa Jal, such du'as are accepted. According to another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that the dua of as-sa'im, someone observing fast, is accepted at the time of iftar. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar, at the time of iftar, he used to gather his family members and he used to say to them, let us all make dua, because this is the time when du'as are accepted. So it was a regular practice of Hazrat Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, that he would gather everyone, the family members, at the time of iftar, and they would all engage in dua. And this is what he learned from the ayah here, which Allah Ta'ala about dua He's mentioned right in the middle of the discussion over Sawm and fasting. So next ayah also continues with that theme. وَحِلَّ لَكُمْ لَيْلَةَ الصِّيَامِ الرَّفَثُ إِلَى نِسَائِكُمْ. I'm going to translate the ayah before the break, and after the break we'll go through the discussion. وَحِلَّ لَكُمْ لَيْلَةَ الصِّيَامِ الرَّفَثُ إِلَى نِسَائِكُمْ. approaching your women folk, your wives, and going to them and approaching them and being with them and sleeping with them has been made halal for you during the nights of fasting. So at night time in the month of Ramadan, it's been made halal for you to sleep with your women folk, your wives. They are a cover for you, and you are a cover for them. They're a garment for you, and you're a garment for them. Allah Azza wa Jal is aware that you used to deceive yourselves when the hukam was different, that after at bedtime when people fell asleep, the fasting hours for the following day would commence immediately. So if someone woke up 15 minutes after sleep, then that he was not allowed to drink or eat or do anything, and anything else, with their wives. It was not permissible. Kuntum takhtan. But people used to, unfortunately, many people, they fell in error. Fataba alaykum. So Allah Ta'ala has now turned towards you and has granted you forgiveness. Wa'afa ankum. And He has forgiven you. فَالْآنَ بَاشِرُهُنْ. Now have relation with them. Al-ana, now. So now have relation with them. وَابْتَغُوا, and seek and search that which Allah Azza wa Jal has written for you. And eat and drink. Continue eating and drinking. Obviously, you can continue eating and drinking. You can eat anytime until يتبين لكم الخيط الأبيض, until becomes distinct for you the white thread from the black thread of Fajr. From the black thread. The white thread of Fajr from the black thread of night. So you can continue to eat and drink. ثم أتم الصيام إلى الليل. Thereafter, once that phenomena occurs, thereafter complete the fasting until the night time. ولا تباشروهن. So that permission to have relation with your women folk was given. That permission was applied only during the nighttime hours. However, if you are doing i'tikaf in masajid, if you're secluded in masajid, then even that the permission of having mubasharat and relations with your wives at night times, even that is withheld. And do not have relations with them while you are doing i'tikaf in the masjid, even during the hours of night. Tilka hududullah. These are limits set by Allah, so do not go near them, do not go closer to them. Thus Allah Ta'ala explains His verses for people, so they may become God conscious, so they may become righteous. Sadaqallahu al-Azim. Inshallah, we'll elaborate on this after the break, inshallah.